Good morning, or it's morning for me. Good afternoon, rather. It's noon now. How y'all doing? Did you come to the show? Raise your hand if you came to the show last night. You came. I saw you. You were rocking. You were with me so hard. He was standing right there in front, giving me all the energy. You were learning the lyrics quickly too. I remember that. That was wonderful. Sorry. Raise your hand if you were at the show. You were okay. Good. Oh, you were definitely at the show last night. That's great to see you guys. This is wonderful. Did anyone join for the talk yesterday? I just like to know the overlap. Okay. Well, welcome back. Thank you all. Hey, how you doing, fellow Pisces in the front? Good. So my name is Kiran. I grew up in New York City. I'd love to use this hour according to the following flow. I think I'd like to spend 15 minutes just telling you my story a little bit so you have context for my work and how I think about things. And then I want to tell you about this concept I have called atomic living, which is essentially about using spontaneity productively. So many times in my life, especially as a young person, everyone kept asking me in schools and academic settings, my parents, what's your 10-year plan? You know, what's your 15-year plan? I was like, dang, I'm such a hippie. I can't even tell you what I'm doing 10 minutes from now, man. So a lot of times I grew up with this conflict between what was, legitimate and academic and focused and successful versus what I felt joyful doing, but always felt like it wasn't legitimate, either because it was music or because it was feminism or gender equality. So I'd like to tell you my story and how my journey to start living atomically. And then in the end, I'd like to do an activity with you. Does everybody have a pen? That's going to be very important. You can't do it on your iPhone. So if you're missing a pen, can you raise your hand so she can grab you one? So maybe about 20 more would be helpful. You're the best. Thank you so much. So that activity at the end is basically going to be a roadmap about mapping things that you love to do when no one's looking. Like not what we say we love to do, but just like cooking, even sometimes cleaning, like just random things that I find so much joy in doing and didn't even dial into as a legitimate thing. And we're going to map it to some of the ways we wish the world was a better place. We wished we could make a difference. So we're going to do that activity at the end. Does that sound cool? Yeah. Cool. So my name is Kiran. I grew up in Manhattan in New York City to two fairly traditional Indian parents. My parents had moved from Bombay, India to Manhattan to make a life for themselves, and they had me, my brother, and my sister, both younger than me. And we were raised with the idea of success, of academics, of straight A's, of being the change we wish we wanted to see in the world. My last name is Gandhi, so that was always a quote in the household. We're not related, but of course spiritually, a lot of my parents were really focused on making the world a better place. And while I was good in school, I just loved music. I loved music with my whole heart and soul. I loved the Spice Girls. I loved being in the bus that would pick me up from school. The driver would play classical music when we were near the parents' house, and then we'd pull away and we'd turn it back to the hip-hop station. You feel me? I would learn all the rap. I was like 6 years old. It was terrible, but I loved it. Music felt like the truth, Pop culture felt like my entry point into what inspired me. And so when I was 8 years old, I started playing the drums. I loved the drums. I was in a summer camp. My parents had sent me up to go to Maine, summer camp, sports and all sorts of beautiful, wonderful camping things. But I was like a New York City brat. Like I wasn't trying to swim and do all that, roasting marshmallows type shit. Like, I don't know, I didn't like it that much. So I remember sneaking away once when all the kids were in the lake. And I was like, if I go to the theater cabin, no one will find me. And so I was in a cabin, similar to the kind of cabins here in the woods, and I was just kind of like chilling out, listening to music. I was actually listening to M.I.A, of all things. Like, of all the misogynist stuff in the world, yeah, you can see how my feminism was so informed at a young age. I was like, damn, that doesn't seem right, but I wanted to listen. I was listening to M.I.A, and there was a drum set in the corner. There's a drum set in the corner. And so I started sitting down at it and kind of like adjusting the cymbals and that kind of thing. And there was a maintenance man in the room as well. And when I noticed that he was there, I thought for sure he's going to turn me in. For sure he's going to turn back to the lake for you, Kiran. But instead, it turned out he was a drummer. He was a drummer, so he's like, yo, girl, I got you. Let me show you how it's done. So he lowered the seat, so my feet could hit the floor. He set up the cymbals for me, and it was off to the races from there. I was obsessed. It was like a video game, Once I mastered one beat, I wanted the next beat and the next beat after that, and I was completely hooked. So I came back to my parents after that summer. I was like, I'm a drummer now. I can drum all the Eminem records. They're like, what are you, top to bottom? And they were like, my dad was actually quite supportive. He was quite supportive. So he was the one who was like, let me get you a drum set. You got me a drum set for Christmas. It was so sweet. So I grew up playing, and they were quite supportive, but I was a little skeptical. I was like, what? y'all were never this supportive of my music. What's going on here, you know? By the time I was 18 and started applying for school, I realized it was a glorified extracurricular activity for my resume. You see, my dad was very smart. He said, if I have a kid who plays the drums, that's a diversity credit for her college application. You feel me? So that's why I was so encouraged. It was sort of his backdoor plan to get me into a good school. My parents were really big on political science, so I ended up applying to Georgetown and I got in. It was 2007. I moved out to DC from New York City, and I was there obviously for 4 years. Now, when I was there, I wasn't joyful, you know, I wasn't joyful. I was a good student, got A's, whatever, did that, but, you know, I wasn't present. I was always distracted, and I could tell also because I would eat so badly. It was like I felt stressed when I was there. I didn't feel happy. I didn't feel in my flow. I remember I told this story yesterday. I pulled up to Georgetown kind of excited for like the parties and for college and whatever that's supposed to represent. And all my friends were getting ready to go to some lacrosse party, and I was like, wow, y'all look really good, you know, you're ready to go to the party. And it was like November, it was freezing outside. No one was wearing any pants. I was like, y'all are so smart, you know, you got into Georgetown, why is no one wearing a coat today? You know, what's the deal with that? And they said, you know, it's the frat house kind of vibe. They kind of check you out, and if you look a certain way, you get to go in. So we're just kind of playing the game. I was like, wow, this lacrosse house must have a lot to offer. So let me also play the game and see what's up. So I also wear my like kind of biddied out outfit. It was definitely not as fly as what I'm wearing right now. You know, it's a little bit more on the like, you know, like Forever 21 type of vibes. So I wore that outfit, and I pulled up to this lacrosse place, and literally the kid letting everybody in was like shorter than I was, okay? And we were like 18. This kid's short, he's like, you get to come in, you girls can't come in. I was like, this is bullshit, you know, this is so stupid. Anyway, we all got in. I was like, this is the lamest thing ever, this is so hilarious. Everything smelled like beer, the music was whack, the place was not beautiful. I said, what are we doing here? We can have a million better parties than what this is offering us. We can buy our own beer, we can have better music. So I just pretty much self-selected out. I didn't fit in there. I remember when I was a junior, and I was making my parents very happy because I was interning for the mayor of DC, very prestigious internship. And I was leaving my internship one day, junior in college, and there was a big protest outside the mayor's office, big protest. And they were protesting the mayor's shutting down of a homeless shelter that was across the street. And the mayor was shutting down for completely corrupt reasons because some condos were about to be built there and he was going to pocket a bunch of money from this being shut down. So everyone protesting really had the right to be mad. And I remember kind of being sheepish. I was like, dang, I want to be on that side, not the fucking mayor's side. You know, this is embarrassing. You know, I know better. It's embarrassing. So I kind of like was sheepish. I kind of like took my badge off, you know, put it in my pocket, came back around, and I kind of posted up to where some of the drummers who were protesting were. And I was like, you know, is there another protest? I wanted to come to it. They're like, yeah, sis, we're going to be posting up to 18th Street Lounge tonight. You got to come through. Wednesday, it was a Wednesday. Come through. And I was like, cool, I'll be there. So I rolled up to 18th Street Lounge. Now, 18th Street Lounge is the most legendary club in DC, okay? And I never went there because I thought it was kind of bougie vibes. But actually, it was this beautiful townhouse that used to be a diplomat's building, converted into a music space. And you go in, it smells like incense. You know, I'm like, are we doing yoga here or are we doing music? This is perfect. You know, it was a dream. Pull up, beautiful reggae band playing on the 3rd floor. You go up to the 4th floor, there was a DJ. I was completely in love. I had such a sense of relief, like, oh, like I fit in, you know? We have the activists, we have the Rasta drummers killing it. I want to drum like them. You know, it smells like incense and not like burnt beer. You know, it's like, wow. So I remember feeling this immediate sense of belonging. And when I went up to the club, I remember I was listening to those who got on the mic. And the band who plays, which I found out later, they play every Wednesday, were actually building community around their music and pulling up and organizing and activating all the different people in DC to fight this corruption. I was so inspired. I remember standing and facing the stage, and I was staring at the conga player. You know, his name is Javier. He's now a dear friend of mine. I was staring at Javier. Javier was like, yo, sis, like, what's the deal? You want to play or something? I was like, hell yeah, I want to play. So he invited me to sit in, you know, and that the whole rest of the year, that became my Wednesday ritual, became the most joyful part of my time at Georgetown, and it had absolutely nothing to do with Georgetown. I was there, I was drumming, I felt part of a community. I would help load the drums, I would help check people in at the door. I would come weekly as part of the activist community, which was obviously kind of a double life because I would dress one way when I was like with the activists and then like sneak into the mayor's office because I did have to finish my internship. But I remember thinking this, I said, my parents are so gung-ho on me making a difference through politics, through getting an internship at the White House one day, et cetera, et cetera. But if you're actually thinking about the end goal, which is to make a difference in the world, what's actually happening here? These musicians are bringing together hundreds of people to then get energized on the ground level and fight corruption. And moreover, the political system is based on the values of the constituents informing the people who they're electing. And if the people who are elected don't listen and dial into the needs of the communities, they won't get reelected. There's one part of our system that I do actually believe in, that grassroots is extremely effective. So I said, you know, what are my parents so tripping about? If I want to make a difference, I'd much rather be someone who's a musician, who's inspiring through music, through emotions, who's using a mic for good, who's bringing people together, joyful, dancing, like how we're doing here today at Wanderlust. That seems so much more effective than me just, you know, resume, here's my resume, I worked for this person. It's all bullshit. That's how I felt. This is all bullshit. And I dialed into that. That was the first time where I felt I was living atomically. I was living moment to moment based on what mattered to me. Instead of trying to please somebody else, instead of trying to submit a resume that felt, you know, socially cool, Facebook likes would just come pouring in, you know, I said, fuck all that. I was living atomically. I decided I really wanted to work in music. I wanted my whole life to be in music. I didn't want just my Wednesdays at 18th Street Lounge or the Sunday gig that I ended up getting later to be my joyful part. I wanted my whole day to be joyful because I knew I was the best version of myself when I was in that club. And believe you me, I wasn't even drinking or partying. I was so joyful to be there. It was such a soulful experience. You know, I took my mom to 18th Street Lounge once, actually. I took my mom to 18 when I was a senior. I really wanted her to see it, you know? And, you know, God bless her, she was so sweet. She's like, all right, at least if you're gonna do this, you know, they should put you on a drum riser. You know, they should put you on a drum riser. My parents are so encouraging sometimes, it's very sweet. They put you on a drum, your name should be in the front. I'm like, no, Mom, like, that's not the point. So anyway, I remember when I was graduating my senior year, I spent a lot of time in the music department just hoping to get some sort of job. I had no connections to the music industry. And DC was fine, it was somewhat of an opportunity, but the truth is that there wasn't proper industry there. There was no proper job after school. And I remember just by hanging out a lot in the music department, I noticed that there was one speaker coming to Georgetown named Justin Dreyfus who worked at Interscope Records in LA. And I pulled up to his talk, and luckily everyone left afterwards and I got to chat with him. And I was like, my name is Kiran, I really want to work in music, you know, can you help me? He's like, sis, this is the music industry, we don't got any jobs. We have no jobs. We have no jobs whatsoever, but I've come to give a nice inspirational talk. Well, we have no jobs. So I said, okay, well, what about an internship? You know, what about an internship? He said, okay, you know, send me your resume, let's see. So turns out I did get an internship. I got an internship with Interscope. I got an internship. And I remember I was so happy, I was so proud of that experience. It's so interesting because comparatively, that's actually the most loserish thing you can do in the context of Georgetown. Georgetown, everybody gets these like expensive consulting jobs, expensive investment banking jobs. They have them locked in like October of senior year so they can party the rest of the time. It was May for me and I was just getting this internship, free by the way, in music. So there was this whole ego thing, but I felt so joyful, you know, I felt so happy and proud of it. So I remember moving out, I pulled up to Interscope Records, and I was just kind of bouncing around, I was doing my thing, I was doing whatever jobs were thrown my way, little tasks here and there. Then I started noticing my boss at Interscope Records was having these meetings with Spotify and with YouTube. So I started dialing into that a little bit. I was like, Spotify, YouTube, data, analytics. Spotify had just opened up in the States in 2011, which is when I was doing my internship. All these numbers are coming in from Spotify, from YouTube, and the label does not know what to do with these numbers, literally. Because in fairness, the music industry had always been defined according to hitting millions of records, platinum, diamond. Those were the industry barometers. But no one knew how to analyze the music industry according to Spotify streams, according to YouTube views, which now we know is so much of the game. So what I started to do was I picked up on that because I was a hustler. I was like, I need to get a job. Otherwise my dad's gonna be on me. I didn't take my dad's calls for a minute because they be stressing me. I'm like, I'm not non-ambitious. I'm ambitious, but in my own way, with my own passion. So I just didn't take his calls for a minute because I had this intuitive feeling it was gonna be all right. So I went up to my boss, I noticed that she had just finished the one meeting with Spotify. I said, listen, they're giving you all these numbers and you need somebody to analyze them. Maybe somebody who was a math major, which I didn't mention, but that was what I also studied at Georgetown. I was really living my South Asian dreams. Maybe somebody who's a math major. Maybe somebody who's a millennial, Maybe somebody who can just sit there all day and crunch numbers. So together, I started developing this plan with her to analyze marketing in the music industry, to analyze when we put out a Schoolboy Q record, if he gets 100,000 views in the first day, is that a disaster or is that good? When we put out a Lady Gaga single on Spotify and she gets 500,000 streams in the first 3 days, is that good or is that a disaster? Truly, these are the kinds of questions that no one knew. So I hustled, I got my first job in the industry. I worked at Interscope for 2 years. I was a digital analyst there. And I was so joyful. And I was present. You can tell, at least for me, I can tell when I'm joyful when I'm not checking my phone. You know what I mean? When I'm just like stoked on what I'm doing. When I check the time and the time has passed. And I've lived so many times in my life when I'm so not in the flow, and then when I'm so in the flow. And I keep trying to optimize for being in the flow, which is what this talk is going to be about and is about, atomic living. How do we optimize for the moments that make us feel joyful, make us feel energized, make us want to give epic atomic energy so that we're our best selves for those around us? So I did that for 2 years. Now, I want to tell you about this emotion, jealousy. Jealousy. Jealousy can be a dark emotion, but actually it can be very productive if you channel it in the right way, because it's your body telling you intuitively what it is that you want. And I remember about 2 years in at my time at Interscope Records, I was jealous of two things. I was jealous of my homies who got to tour the world as the guitarist for Justin Bieber, or as the sax player for Katy Perry. I wanted to be the drummer for such and such. That seemed like pretty badass. Touring all over the world as a session musician. It was extraordinary, touring musician. And the second person I was a little bit, less necessarily jealous of, inspired by, was my boss at Interscope. She was so fierce. She had an M.I.A. She was this power Jew. She would walk into a meeting and just ball bust everybody. I was like, damn, sis, I want to be just like you when I grow up. Walking into the Kendrick Lamar meetings, just handling, handling. TDE, all them crew were like, yeah, well, what does Brooke Michael think? And I'd be like, damn, she's such a boss, such a boss. I wanted to be just like her. So I said, maybe I should get my MBA so that I can be also a fierce leader in music, so that I can take all the things that I care about in terms of gender equality and make a difference in music, that I can give the artists who I care about a gateway to come in and work in music. I wanted that same power. So I sort of told the universe that. I started dialing into that. M.I.A. walks in the next day. M.I.A. Y'all know M.I.A.? M.I.A. walks in. She's about to put out a record with Interscope. She walks by my desk and she's going down the hall to the product marketing meeting. My boss comes out of her office, walks by my desk, and I catch my boss. I'm like, please, can I come? I'm not allowed to go to anything. I'm a fucking bottom of the totem pole, you feel me? I said, can I come to the meeting? She said, yes. You can't say anything, but yes, I'll take you. She takes me to the meeting, takes me. When M.I.A. leaves the meeting, leaves the room, and M.I.A. had a moment. She looked at me, she's like, I see you, sis. We had a moment. I'll never forget that. So she said, when M.I.A. left the room, I remember telling her, and my boss had also left the room actually, I remember telling M.I.A.'s product marketing manager, Diana Cass, I said, M.I.A. needs a drummer, okay? M.I.A. needs a drummer. I've seen the show, maybe somebody who's brown, maybe somebody who's female, really looks the part. And so Diana was like, all right, listen, if you're for real, send me a video. Now listen, all the videos that I had at the time were horrible iPhone videos with my friends shaking the camera while they try to film me drum, It was not something that I was trying to send to M.I.A. So I had a friend of mine help me out. He had a big studio that his girlfriend owned at the time. And I said, can we cut a video quickly to M.I.A. Stop? That video is online still. It's called M.I.A. Session Video. So I drum to all of her stuff. We send the video to Diana, who sends it to M.I.A. Within 24 hours, M.I.A. hits me back on email. And I knew it was her because it was a cryptic email address. It was cryptic, and I knew it was her. And I was on some LA type shit. Like, you know in LA, sometimes you pull up in your home, but it's cold outside, so I didn't get out of my car. I was just like sitting there and like waiting for the moment. And then boom, this email came in. You know, boom, atomic, amazing. Opened up my email. The title of the email was all capital letters, hi. All caps in the email itself. Love your video. Thank you so much for sending. You're a great drummer. I'm not thinking about the tour right now, but I'll hit you up when I do. You know, I'm not assembling the tour now, but I'll hit you up when I do. Listen, if your favorite artist validates your drumming, you're made. Like, I was so stoked on this. I printed out that email, stuck it to my drum set area, and it was made. Now, at the same time, I started applying to business school. Same time I started applying to business school. Now, I was studying for my GMAT in a hella atomic way, okay? Which means that I wasn't on this really every single day, grinding, 6 a.m., 8 p.m. It was more like I had the flashcards. Every single day, I tried to find a pocket of hour, 2 hour to do it and to get it right. Every Sunday, I honored my practice test, but I definitely studied in a way that was like, when pockets of time open up in my day, I'm gonna be disciplined enough to use those pockets of time to study, but I'm not gonna like, be so rigid about it that it's just so unjoyful. Does that make sense? I was trying to be delicate with myself so that I maintained stamina. I ended up doing well on the GMAT. I ended up getting into Harvard Business School, and I ended up ending my time at Interscope. I wound up my time at Interscope in the middle of 2013. I'm getting ready to pack up my stuff and move out to school in Boston. I get another email from M.I.A. Another email from M.I.A. It's her team this time. And they say, okay, cool, so we're ready. We're ready for the tour. Here are the dates. We want you to be the drummer. Let's go. Now, this is what we call an atomic clusterfuck, okay? This is an atomic clusterfuck. Yeah, truly. I was like, damn, I was so just joyful with one or the other happening, you know, not an atomic clusterfuck. So I remember looking at the dates side by side. And literally these dates were during my first semester at business school, you know. So what would you do? You know, tour the world with your famous artists. I mean, the dates were like Japan, Poland, Chile, Argentina, Mexico, places I had never been in my whole life. Or learn business at one of the most prestigious, albeit the breeding ground of the capitalist patriarchy, okay? Albeit, yeah. But nonetheless, they had something to teach every now and then, so I said, you know, this is good. So what would you do with this choice? What would you do? I ended up asking one of my mentors, you know, and shouts out to female mentors, you know, mentors in general, you know, a lot of the theme of this story too is us looking out for each other when we can. It's so important. Another friend of mine, DJ Reka, she was with me. She was like, I know what you should do. I said, what's that? She said, you're gonna do both. You're gonna do both, and that's it. Make it work. I said, damn. So I started looking at the dates, and actually most of the days were a Friday, a one-off, or like a one-off Saturday, or a one-off Thursday, you know? So actually, it was possible. So I started looking at the Harvard calendar of classes, and they're hella strict too. Like, you can't be missing anything. They'll kick you right out. So most of the time I was able to go Friday, Poland, play the show, Sunday, boom, Monday, and time for class. Another time I was able to go Japan, play the show Friday, or in that case Saturday, come back Sunday, and be right in time for class. The time difference worked in my favor. One time that it was crazy, was M.I.A. would put out her record in 2013 in the fall. So we had all the promotional shows in New York lined up, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, all in the evenings. And I was in school in Boston, so I looked at that calendar, I was like, all right, here we go. So Monday, I went to class at school, and then at 2 p.m. I flew to New York City, and then I played the show, and then at 6 a.m. I took the shuttle back, and I went to Boston, and I did my classes, and then at 2 p.m. I went back to the airport, and I went back to New York City, and then I played the show in New York with M.I.A. Then on Wednesday morning, I went back to Boston, class, back to New York, Thursday, one more time for the 4th time in a row, went to class in Boston, flew back to New York, played the show, and went back to school on Friday. And landed safe! Now in my second year of business school, I wasn't so fortunate. You know, I wasn't so fortunate to have this atomic, wonderful distraction. And when I think about atomic living, I'll take a moment to say this. For me, it's about knowing what matters to you. What are your most important values? Did any of you go to the noon talk yesterday? Yeah. It was so profound. It was so profound, right? It was just wonderful. She spoke a lot about value-based leadership. Value-based leadership. What matters to you? Not what matters to somebody else. What matters to you? And for me, more or less, it's pretty much been the same. But atomic living allows for you to change your values as they change organically. For me, it's always been my music, both on the playing side, but also on the industry side. It's been my feminism, my deep commitment to wanting to make the world a better and safer place for women. It's been fitness. I love, playing sports, being active, yoga, how all of you are doing. And I love my friends and family, hang time, low-key time, those moments with your friends. So those are my 4. Everybody has their different ones. There's no end. You can have one. And then what I like to do is optimize my spontaneous moments in my life for each of those values. So at school, for example, they do a lot of this FOMO shaming. I'll never forget this. Like, oh, damn, you weren't at the party last night? Like, damn. Or like, oh my God, you're not going to the networking event? Like, good luck trying to get a, life after graduation. And I would, like how I told you the story about the frat party, I'll always try something once. Maybe there's something I'm missing. Let's go. I remember going to a networking event at business school, and it was just so, there was just no vibe. I didn't fit in there, There's no people from music there. It wasn't very inspiring. It felt very contrived. Another time I went to a party at business school, it was like on some boat, it was so extra. It was on a boat, everyone's so obliterated, just drinking so heavily. Hey, I like to have a delicious beer every now and then, or a buzzed kombucha, don't get me wrong, but I would pull up to these parties and everyone was so inebriated, they didn't even remember the conversation anyway, So I said, listen, let me optimize for what matters to me. So then the opportunity would come in, hey, Kiran, are you coming to the networking event tonight? Are you coming to the party tonight? Hell no, I'm gonna get 8 hours of sleep. I'm gonna do so well in the class tomorrow. I'm gonna read the case twice so that I don't fuck it up. I'm gonna practice my drums. I'm gonna hang out with a friend. I'm gonna FaceTime my little sister, Optimizing for what matters to us and holding that value system so sacredly. As spontaneous opportunities and events and emails and all that kind of thing would come into my life, I would analyze it according to this grid. Does it have the potential to nourish any of these things that matter to me? Music, feminism, fitness, or family? Music, feminism, fitness, or family? Does it have the potential to nourish any of these things? And it's a vibes thing, I can tell when it's going to be good or not, and you get better at living atomically the more you do it. Now, it's very difficult. It's obviously difficult if you have a class. There's a schedule, obviously. It's difficult if you're in an office place. But I do think it's so possible to live atomically with the free moments in our day, or like taking a weekend off to come to a place like Wanderlust. This is a very obvious place, festivals, college campuses, even office spaces where you can live atomically just by being in the moment when you're walking. When I'm walking, I try my best, and I'm not always so good at it, to just be like, who's to my left and right, Who's right in front of me, instead of tripping on my problems, because then so many more opportunities can come from that moment, especially if you bring your fullest and most joyful self. Now, in my second year, I had an atomic moment. You see, I was a complete loser, and I brought my Prius from Los Angeles to Boston, okay? Like an idiot. Now, you see, I was driving my adorable, sweet Californian babe of a Prius, okay? And it got completely stuck in the snow. It got completely stuck in the snow, and I was on a very heavy freeway. It was very embarrassing. So I'm there, freezing. I'm waiting for AAA to come. While I'm present, okay, present in my misery, I noticed all these runners on the Charles River running in the snow, okay? And it wasn't like a CrossFit type shit. It was just individual runners doing their thing. It was so badass. Are there any runners in the room? Raise your hand if you're a runner in the room. I was so inspired by these runners. I was like, this is some no frills type shit. This is it's 20 degrees outside, you're snowing. Oh, my friend bought me a coffee, I love you. Mwah, thank you. The runners were running, it's snowing, and it was so inspiring how raw it was. It was so raw. I was like, damn, I'm a weakling. I'm trying to bring my Prius to drive 3 blocks, and these runners are getting their miles in, So I was very, very inspired. So I started to run. And in the spirit of being vulnerable today here at Wonderlust, I'll also tell you about an insecurity that I had, which is that, at HBS, at business school, I felt a lot of imposter syndrome. You know this concept of imposter syndrome, where you feel like you're not meant to be there, and moreover, that the only reason why you got the opportunity is because you were the diversity checkmark, You're the diversity checkmark. It wasn't because of your skill set. It was because maybe you're brown, of color, your background. I was in music, which was diverse. I have a queerness to me, so maybe they picked up on that, like, she can come in. So I had a bit of an imposter syndrome. And so I kind of felt like, damn, did I just get this because of my diversity? Am I going to be a diversity checkmark forever? Or am I really worth my salt, Am I really a high-achieving, passionate person? And am I the best version of myself? So let me tell you something. I started to run, and I started to run my ass off. Because I felt like, if you run 5 miles, no one can take that away from you. And if you run 5 miles in the snow, no one can fuck with you. It doesn't matter if you're tall, short, black, white, gay, straight, you earn those 5 miles. Do you know what I mean? It's an honest achievement. You just put your shoes on and you run. You don't need any gear, and the people in Massachusetts are quite extra. They have hella gear, but I wasn't on that tip. So I was running. I was running, and the more I ran, it just would inspire me so much. I felt like the best version of myself. I felt really present. And a homie of mine who played the show with me last night, she's sitting in the back here, Meredith, she was like, you should run the London Marathon with me. I was like, oh, that's so sweet. That's so encouraging. But by the time April came around, there we were. She signed me up and dragged me out to London. We pulled up to the London Marathon, April of 2015. In April of 2015, it was a month before I was supposed to graduate business school. So I remember getting to the start of this London Marathon start line. And I was like nervous, but I was like ready. Meredith is like a gazelle. She was so encouraging. She's like, it's gonna be great. I'm gonna listen to Taylor Swift all the way. It's gonna be so fun. I realized I was getting my period. Now, for anybody who's never had a period in the room, let me tell you what you're not trying to do on day 1 of your cycle. Let me tell you what you're not trying to do. It's run 26 miles. You feel me? And anytime I had practiced running and trained during that second year of business school, I remember just skipping out for a couple of days on my cycle because it's not comfortable. I was like, I'll just chill out. That's the family part of the atomic living. Let's switch from fitness. And I just, like any of us, have been caught unprepared on our cycle. I started evaluating my options. I was like, okay, a pad, no. Chafing is a real thing on a marathon course. No man that I know would put cotton between his balls and run 26 miles. A tampon, I guess so. I didn't want like a half in, half out situation when I was running for 4 hours. I didn't want the string being uncomfortable. I didn't want to run with an extra one in my hand. There's no privacy on a marathon course. I mean, everyone's talking about like disrupting all these industries. I'm like, please come and disrupt the menstrual care industry because it's literally an ancient industry. I thought also about a menstrual cup, but obviously I didn't have one at the time. So I decided to just take a little Advil, which a friend of mine had, bleed freely, and run. And I was on some feminist punk rock shit. Like I knew that it was radical. I knew that it was radical. But the more I ran, the more I thought, first of all, how are you going to shame a marathon runner? You're on the sidelines eating fucking popcorn, watching us run by. You're not going to say anything. And I knew that there was enormous power in that. Moreover, I knew that I wanted to prioritize my own comfort over the eyes of somebody else. And that is a modern feminist agenda. It is okay to say it's oppressive that we have to suffer in silence, that we can't talk about such a basic part of our human anatomy. The more I ran, the more I thought, at least I was in a privileged position to even choose to run this way. But millions of women and girls around the world do not have that same privilege. And I grew up between Bombay, India, and New York City, and I know, especially even in places like India, only 12% of the entire Indian population, 1.2 billion people, have access to the products they need to take care of themselves on their period each month. Only 12%. which means that the other percentage is sitting there completely uncomfortable in their own body, unable to talk about their menstrual care. Women and girls drop out of school when they hit 7th or 8th grade and they hit puberty because they just genuinely don't have the products to take care of themselves each month. None of us want to be uncomfortable. So women tend to not reach their fullest potential because of such a simple stigma that exists all around the world, all around the world. And the shame that we experience in our own bodies is so unfair. It's so unfair. I wrote about this experience. I crossed the finish line successfully. I crossed the finish line holding Meredith's hand, holding my other friend Anna's hand, total sisterhood and solidarity. We crossed the finish line. I wrote about this experience. The story went completely viral. The story went completely viral. The New York Times was calling me, the Washington Post was calling me, Australia, Uganda, India, London. The story went completely viral. It was completely out of my control. And while luckily the original piece was in my own words, so I did have that protection, the story took a life of its own. And I started getting so much hatred into my inbox. Facebook, it was trending for 4 days because people were like, this is disgusting, which was actually perfect, because that was the point. We're trying to, no, it's not. I'm using this as a symbolic act to say it's not disgusting, that we do, as women, extraordinary things all over the world each month on our cycle, and we're still forced to suffer in silence. It's bullshit. And here we are, still being amazing. Here we are. I wrote about this experience. The story went viral. And I remember having a bit of a panic attack. Do I step in and own this identity? Do I take all the calls? I'm about to graduate business school. My parents have so much on the line. They're so stoked for me. Will I never be able to get a job? You know, all these traditional type things kept coming back. That's the theme of this talk today, this thing between what I want and what I feel and what I want to say versus the environments that I grew up in and sort of these elite academic societies telling me what's right and what's wrong. So many people said, no, don't answer that, let it die down, news moves quickly, you'll be fine, you'll never be able to get a job after this. That was a lot of people kept telling me that. But I called one mentor of mine, another mentor, Catherine McKinnon, a very famous feminist professor at the law school at Harvard. And she took my call and I said, this is what's happening. She said, yeah, actually I saw that, I didn't know that was you. I didn't know that was you. I saw that, I said, what do I do? What do I do? Do I step in, do I take these calls, or do I let it die down? I feel kind of unsafe, to be honest. You know, so many evil tweets and emails and harassment is coming into my inbox right now. What do I do? And she said, you know what? Not so many people are given the chance to have a megaphone like this. You have a megaphone, and you don't have a job. You've already graduated. You have no stocks or anyone investing in you. You better pick up your phone and take every single call and talk to every single reporter who will talk to you, and you better share your message. You've been sharing your message in the classroom, you've been sharing your message about feminism to your friends. Pick up the phone and have the bravery to speak to anybody and everybody who will listen. And so I decided to own my own voice and really step into that role and do exactly that. And so for the entirety of my time after HBS, I remember working a lot in women's health and in hygiene, giving talks about why I think this issue is so important, why I think menstrual health should be destigmatized, and I also use this platform to talk about a lot of other gender equality issues that have always been bothering me, especially when I was at an oppressive place like HBS for 2 years. Moreover, my chance to perform also happened because a lot of people would say, come and give a talk, but also can you share your music? I didn't have any music at the time, so I started writing. I wrote an album, it came out. I've been spending this year writing my next album. I'm going to Milan tonight to the next album. The point of the story that I want to share with you is that in all the things that I was most proud of, the marathon, my time with M.I.A, getting my first job at Interscope, even to this day I reflect on this all the time, the things that I've been most proud of in my own life are when I shut out the noise, and when I stopped asking for external validation and instead looked inward and said, what matters to me? And how can I use these opportunities and these spontaneous chances productively to nourish the things that make me joyful so that I can be the best version of myself? And I can tell when I'm not living atomically, and I can tell when I am. And I try my best to do the latter. When I was growing up, so much of what was told to us was, what is your 10-year plan? As I told you in the beginning of the talk, what's your 30-year plan? I said, listen, I'm 28 now. If I followed the 10-year plan of my 18-year-old self, it would have been capped at, I don't know, graduating Georgetown. We can barely see so much. You know, maybe I said I wanted to be a lawyer, I think, at one point. I wanted to be a politician. I would have never thought about business school. I would have never thought about Harvard. I would have never thought about drumming for my favorite artist, who was my favorite artist as an 18-year-old. I would have never thought about being in this wonderful yoga festival with you in this moment. I am so interested in atomic living because it's about dialing into the present moment, saying how can I energize myself and make choices based on what matters to me so that I can be the most energized version for myself and for others. I want to shift to do an activity with you before we open up to Q&A. So please get your pen and papers out.
We got as many as we can, so we might do a little bit of sharing.
So hold it horizontally like this. 15 minutes. Perfect. Do you have a paper that I can demonstrate with?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So you hold it like this, and you're going to fold it into threes.
You got one?
So you have 3 creases like this. And now I'm going to go like this so you can face me. I want you to write on the topmost left one right here, just the number 1 at the top. And then in the middle panel, you're actually going to write the number 3 at the top, not the number 2. So the number 3 in the middle panel. And on the far right, you're going to write the number 2 on the top. So from left to right at the top, it should read 1, 3, 2. This side is 1, this side is 3, this side is 2. And now on 1, we're going to do a 2-minute brainstorm. And this, no one's going to share this, no one's going to see this. This is wholeheartedly for you. I want you to write down everything that brings you joy. Everything that brings you joy. The goal is to fill the paper so that you're seeking for space. Fill the paper. The more tools you have, the better for the exercise. When no one's around, how do you use your free time? What's a time where you were really present in the moment? If you got off work an hour early, what would you do with that hour? Besides hobbies, think broadly. My favorite part of my day is my iced coffee in my morning. I love to have a delicious iced coffee and find the dopest iced coffee spot in the city I'm touring in. That gives me a lot of joy. I love picking my outfits out in the morning. That gives me a lot of joy. It's part of the reason why I was late today. Children are very good at this exercise. Dial into your liberal, childish, freest self. What gives you joy? So you can put sex, you can put whatever you want. What brings you joy? What's a time when you felt proud of yourself? Like, damn, I did that. Okay, wind down, take your pens off the paper. Now, on the panel that says 2, which should be your far right panel, you can close up panel 1 so that you're only looking at panel 3, or panel 2, sorry. And on that far right panel, let's do a 2-minute brainstorm where you write down everything you wished could be better in the world. What are the kinds of news articles that you dig for organically because they're the ones you care about? What are the things that make you mad, sad, have brought you to tears, make you want to protect that person? What are the things that make you upset about this world as it is today? Think one level down to your community. In your community, what are some things you wish could be better? Is there a gate that's broken that should have a lock on it? Is there a garden that keeps dying that should be nurtured better? Is there crime? Is there lack of community where no one talks to each other on the street when they pass each other by? What are the things in your community, in your office place, in your friend circle, in your Facebook feed? What are things that upset you that could be better? Think about your relationships, the people in your life who matter to you so much. What are the pains that need to be healed? What are the friendships that have tension? Get down your last ideas, and we'll wind down page 2. Now this part is the hardest part of the exercise, the third part. You open it up entirely. On your left side, you have this, what I think is a toolkit of all the things that you love organically. You know, for me, it's my drumming, it's having conversations about feminism, it's having a delicious craft beer, all these different things. And when I was growing up, I was only taught about page 2, how I'm supposed to make a difference in the world. But I wasn't taught about what brings me joy, you know? I was just taught, work hard so that you can make a difference in the world. But when I started dialing into the things that I loved, I felt so much more able to actually make these differences, to actually fight for equality, to actually sing and speak and drum the words that I believe in. And so this middle panel is a constant journey, but I'm going to take 2 minutes with you to start brainstorming what are some of the ways that you can use the things that you love and would be doing anyway to make changes that you've written down you wished you saw on page 2. How can you take the things that you would be doing anyway, have joy as much as possible be your fuel, so that when the pains of this work, of trying to make these things better, start to take over you, your ammo and your fuel still comes from the fact that you're actually doing something that you love. How do you start making those connections? And it can be something that you're already doing in your line of work, but it can also be something like bringing a friend with you to your yoga class. I'll never forget when I toured with M.I.A, someone tweeted after our first show, "I can't believe M.I.A has this badass all-female band on the stage with her." And that's when I started realizing, man, just by me existing as a drummer on a stage with eyes on it, there's so much impact I can do to combat stereotypes of what women are and aren't capable of. Such simple things. My mom always gives a really terrible example, but she always talks about smart food popcorn because she loves it. And she's like, this kid was a genius. He loved pizza, he loved popcorn, he didn't have a job, so he combined pizza flavor and popcorn and made smart food. And now he's a millionaire. I'm like, Mom, it's not making the world a better place. She's like, well, he improved his own life and his family is happy. So, well, okay, Mom, it's not quite it, but how do we take what we love and what we would be doing anyway to make these changes we wish to see in the world, in our communities, in ourselves? As you wind down that third column, I want to share a couple final remarks. To me, I'm always improving this list. I'm not writing it down on a physical paper, but this is the kind of thing that I think about all the time. Because if I know what matters to me and I know where I'm trying to go, then it allows atomic living to be very easy. Because in any scenario and environment that you're in, you can dial into the things that give you joy and have a very clear compass. This is a yes, this is a no. This party is a no, but this coffee with a joyful friend is a yes. And it's a constant shift. I always, when I was younger, would feel pressure to say yes to things that I didn't want to do because they didn't align with any of these things that mattered to me. And that's when I would start eating badly. That's when I would have my bad habits. That's when I wouldn't feel joyful. That's when I would cry. I didn't like that part of my life. If you do the work to know what matters to you, and if you allow these to evolve as they might evolve organically, running wasn't there for me even 3 years ago, but now it's very much there. You're constantly seeking new sources of joy, and you're constantly allowing all of your moment-to-moment interactions to actually be very productive and not be such a hippy-dippy, be-present type of thing. It's valuable because you're working towards something. I always think about something that a teacher told me once, which is that we're constantly trying to Google the answer. Everything is outside of us, looking for the answer, out, seeking gurus and this kind of thing. But instead, we should start looking also inward. What matters to me? What makes me feel joyful? How can I use those things as a compass? Thank you for being here with me today. My name is Kiran. Stay in touch. Everything is Madame Gandhi on social. Madame Gandhi at Gmail. The future is female. That was the talk yesterday. And live atomically. Thank you.